Hello. I'm really glad you're here today. Wherever you are right now, maybe sitting quietly with your phone, maybe walking, maybe lying on your bed after a long day, I want you to know something first. You don't have to be perfect here. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to prove that you are strong, confident, or fluent. Today, I want to talk about something very human, something many of us carry quietly, without ever saying it out loud. I'm afraid of disappointing people. Maybe when you hear that sentence and something inside you becomes very still. Maybe you think, yes, that's me too. This fear is often quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't show itself clearly. But it shapes the way we speak, the way we act, and sometimes the way we stay silent. Today, I want to walk with you through this feeling, through a true story, through simple English, through moments that feel small, but stay with us for years. And as always, you are not just learning English. You are learning how to put words around your inner world. Let me begin with a moment from my own life. I remember standing in a small room many years ago. The walls were light-colored. The air felt a little heavy. I was holding a piece of paper in my hands. On that paper were words I had practiced again and again. I was supposed to speak. I was supposed to explain myself. I was supposed to be clear. But inside, my heart was beating too fast. I wasn't afraid of speaking English. I wasn't afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of disappointing the people in front of me. I remember thinking, if I say the wrong thing, they'll be disappointed. If I hesitate, they'll think less of me. If I don't meet their expectations, I'll lose something important. So I smiled. I nodded. I spoke carefully, politely, safely, and I didn't say what I really felt. After that moment, I walked home alone. The street was quiet. I could hear my footsteps, and I felt tired, not in my body, but in my chest. Have you ever felt that kind of tired? Not the tiredness that sleep can fix, but the tiredness that comes from holding yourself back. Let's stay with this feeling for a moment. I'm afraid of disappointing people. Repeat after me, slowly. I'm afraid of disappointing people. Say it again, but softer. I'm afraid of disappointing people. Now try changing one word. I'm afraid of disappointing my family. I'm afraid of disappointing my boss. I'm afraid of disappointing my teacher. I'm afraid of disappointing myself. This fear often starts early in life. Maybe when you were young, you learned that being good meant being quiet. Maybe being loved meant meeting expectations. Maybe you learned to read people's faces before you spoke. I learned that too. I learned how to sense disappointment in silence, in a pause, in a small change of tone. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to shape my words around other people's comfort. I chose safe sentences. I avoided difficult truths. I said yes when I wanted to say no. This is not weakness. This is sensitivity. But sensitivity, when we don't understand it, can become fear. Let me tell you another story. A student once wrote to me. She said she loved English, but she was afraid to speak. Not because of grammar, not because of vocabulary. She said, "When I speak English, I feel like people will hear who I really am, and I'm scared they won't like it." That sentence stayed with me for a long time, because language is not just sound. Language is exposure. When you speak, you reveal something. Your thoughts, your feelings, your rhythm. And if you've spent your life trying not to disappoint, speaking can feel dangerous. You might think, if I speak badly, I disappoint them. If I speak slowly, I disappoint them. If I say something strange, I disappoint them. So you stay quiet. You listen. You prepare sentences in your head, but never release them. Does this feel familiar? Let's slow down and look at one simple phrase. I didn't want to let them down. Repeat after me. I didn't want to let them down. To let someone down means to disappoint them. Now try this sentence. I didn't say what I wanted because I didn't want to let them down. Say it slowly. Feel it. Many people learning English carry this feeling into language learning. They think, if I make mistakes, my teacher will be disappointed. If I forget words, people will be impatient. If I speak with an accent, I will sound less intelligent. So they wait. They study more. They prepare forever. But language doesn't grow in silence. It grows in courage. And courage does not mean confidence. Courage means speaking even when your voice shakes. Let me share a quieter moment now. There was a morning when I sat in a cafe alone. The window was foggy. People were passing by outside. I was watching them. One by one, I realized something gently, almost sadly. I had spent years trying to be someone who never disappointed anyone. And in doing that, I had disappointed myself many times. I hadn't said what I believed. I hadn't asked for what I needed. I hadn't allowed myself to be seen fully, and no one had asked me to do that. It was my own fear. Maybe you know this feeling too. Maybe you say yes to extra work, even when you're exhausted. Maybe you smile in conversations, even when you feel invisible. Maybe you stay quiet in English, even when you have something important to say. Let's practice a sentence together. I was afraid they would think less of me. Repeat after me. I was afraid they would think less of me. Now try this. I was afraid they would think less of me if I spoke. This fear is very human. But here is something important I want you to hear and not just understand, but feel. Disappointment is not always failure. Sometimes, disappointment is simply honesty arriving. When you speak honestly, some people may feel uncomfortable. When you set boundaries, some people may feel surprised. When you speak English imperfectly, some people may hear effort instead of perfection. And effort is not disappointing, it is brave. Let me tell you about a moment when I finally spoke. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. I was in a conversation, and I felt that familiar pressure say the right thing. Don't upset anyone. Don't be difficult. And then I paused. I took a breath, and I said one simple sentence. I don't feel the same way. My voice was calm. My hands were steady. The room didn't collapse or no one walked away. The world didn't end. There was silence. Then conversation continued. And inside me, something relaxed. Not because everyone agreed with me, but because I had been honest. Repeat after me. I don't feel the same way. This is a powerful sentence. You can use it in English. You can use it in life. Now, let's bring this back to learning English. When you speak English, you are not performing. You are expressing. Your accent is not a problem. Your pauses are not failures. Your mistakes are not disappointments. They are signs that you are alive in the language. I often tell my students this. You are not here to sound perfect. You are here to sound real. Maybe today, you can try one small thing. Maybe you can speak one sentence, even if it's slow. Maybe you can write one honest thought. Maybe you can stop apologizing before you speak. Instead of saying, sorry, my English is bad, try saying, I'm learning and I'm trying. Repeat after me. I'm learning and I'm trying. This sentence carries dignity. Now, I want to speak to you directly. If you are afraid of disappointing people, it means you care. It means you are attentive. It means you have empathy. But your life cannot be built only around other people's expectations. Your voice matters even when it trembles. Your words matter even when they are simple. Your English matters even when it is imperfect. Language is not about impressing. It is about connecting, and connection requires truth. As we come closer to the end of this journey together today, I want you to imagine something. Imagine speaking English not to please, but to express. Imagine allowing yourself to be a learner, not a performer. Imagine letting people be slightly disappointed and still being okay. Because the people who truly matter will not leave because you are human. They will stay because you are honest. Take a slow breath with me now. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not disappointing. You are learning not just English, but how to stand gently inside your own voice. And that is something to be proud of. Let's stay together a little longer. There is still something important here that I don't want to rush past. Because this fear, the fear of disappointing people, doesn't disappear just because we understand it. It softens slowly. It loosens its grip little by little, through awareness, through language, through small, honest moments. I want to tell you about another quiet memory. There was a time when someone asked me a very simple question. What do you want? Not, what should you do? Not, what do people expect from you? Just, what do you want? I remember feeling confused. Not because the question was difficult, but because I wasn't used to answering it. My first instinct was to think about other people. What would make them happy? What would make them proud? What would avoid disappointment? And then I realized something gently painful. I had learned English words for many things. Work, responsibility, success, politeness, but I hadn't practiced the language of desire. I hadn't practiced saying I don't want this anymore. So let's practice together now. Repeat after me. Slowly. I want more time. Again, I want more time. Now try this one. I need rest. Say it quietly. I need rest. These sentences are not selfish. They are honest. Many people who are afraid of disappointing others are very good at understanding emotions, other people's emotions. They notice changes in tone. They feel tension in a room. They sense disappointment before it is spoken. But they often lose connection with their own inner voice. Language learning can help bring that voice back. When you describe your day in English, you are not just practicing verbs. You are checking in with yourself. When you say, I felt tired today, you are giving your experience a shape. When you say, I didn't feel heard, you are naming something important. Let me tell you a story about silence. There was a meeting once where many people were talking. Ideas were moving fast. Opinions were strong. I had something to say, not something brilliant, just something true. But I waited. I waited for the perfect moment. I waited for the perfect sentence. I waited until the conversation moved on. And then the meeting ended. As I walked away, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, just regret. I realized that I had protected everyone else from disappointment, but I had silenced myself. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and replayed it in your head, thinking, I should have said that. I wanted to say this. Why didn't I speak? This happens in English too. You think of the sentence later, when you're alone, when it's safe. But language lives in the moment. It doesn't need to be perfect to be valuable. Sometimes, a simple sentence spoken at the right time is enough. Like, I think differently. I'm not sure about that. Can you explain again? Repeat after me. Can you explain again? This sentence is powerful because it allows you to stay present without pretending. Pretending is exhausting. Pretending you understand. Pretending you agree. pretending you're fine. And when you pretend too often, your voice grows quiet, not because it's weak, but because it's tired. I want to speak now to the part of you that feels responsible for everyone's feelings. That part of you learned early that harmony was safety, that being easy was protection, that disappointing people meant losing connection. But real connection does not come from constant agreement. It comes from truth, spoken gently. You can be kind and honest at the same time. You can be respectful and still say no. You can be learning English and still deserve patience. Let's practice another sentence. I'm not ready yet. Repeat after me. I'm not ready yet. This sentence gives you space. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to justify your pace. You are allowed to learn slowly. Sometimes, when students tell me they're afraid to speak, I ask them something simple. What are you afraid will happen? Often, the answer is not about language. It's about judgment. It's about disappointing someone important. It's about being seen as less capable. But here is something I want you to hold gently. The people who matter will not measure you by your fluency. They will feel your intention. They will sense your effort. And the people who judge harshly were never your safe place to begin with. Your job is not to perform English. Your job is to live inside it, to use it to say what you feel, to use it to build bridges, not walls. Let me slow down now. Take a breath. Think of one moment recently when you didn't say what you wanted to say. Just one. Now imagine saying it not perfectly, but honestly. Maybe it sounds like this: I was uncomfortable. I didn't understand. I need more time. Say one of these sentences out loud, if you can. Your voice does not need permission to exist, and neither does your English. As we come closer to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with one quiet truth. Disappointing people is sometimes the cost of being real, and being real is the only way to feel whole. You are allowed to take up space in a conversation. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to search for words. You are not here to meet impossible expectations. You are here to learn, to express, to grow. And every time you choose honesty over fear, even in one small sentence, you reclaim a part of yourself. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for trying. There is something else that often lives beneath the fear of disappointing people. It's not always easy to name, but you might recognize it when you feel it. It's the feeling that your value depends on how useful you are to others. I remember realizing this slowly, not in one clear moment, but in many small ones. I noticed how often I said yes automatically, how often I adjusted my schedule, my words, even my tone, to make things easier for others, and how rarely I asked myself a simple question: am I okay right now? Maybe you know this pattern too. You help, you adapt, you listen, and people often say you are kind, reliable, easy to work with. But inside, there is a quiet pressure, a feeling that you must continue being this person, or something will be lost. Love, approval, belonging. This pressure can follow you into English. You try to speak correctly, not just to communicate, but to prove something, that you are serious, that you are intelligent, that you deserve patience. So let's slow down and look at one sentence together. I don't want to be a burden. Repeat after me. I don't want to be a burden. Many people carry this sentence inside them without ever saying it. They think asking questions is a burden. Speaking slowly is a burden. Making mistakes is a burden. But learning is never a burden. Learning is a process that requires space. When a child learns to speak, we don't rush them. We don't say, speak faster. We don't say, don't make mistakes. We listen. We wait. We encourage. You deserve the same patience from others, but also from yourself. Let me tell you about a moment when I finally asked for help. I was working on something important, and I didn't understand everything. I knew I could stay quiet and figure it out later. That's what I usually did. That way, no one would be inconvenienced. But that day, I felt tired of carrying everything alone. So I said one simple sentence. Can you help me with this? Repeat after me. Can you help me with this? Nothing bad happened. No one was annoyed. No one looked disappointed. Instead, the conversation slowed down. There was space. There was cooperation. And I realized something important. People often feel more connected when we let them help us. Perfection creates distance. Honesty creates closeness. This is true in English too. When you speak honestly, even imperfectly, people lean in. They listen differently. They hear effort. They hear sincerity. I want you to imagine a conversation now. You are speaking English. You forget a word. There is a pause. Instead of apologizing, instead of panicking, you say, I can't find the word, but I'll try to explain. Repeat after me. I can't find the word, but I'll try to explain. This sentence keeps you moving forward. It tells the listener, I'm still here. I'm still trying. And trying is enough. Let's talk about disappointment again, but from another angle. Sometimes we are not afraid of disappointing people today. We are afraid of disappointing a younger version of ourselves, the child who wanted to be good, the teenager who wanted approval, the version of you who believed love had to be earned. That version of you did the best they could. They learned to be careful. They learned to be polite. They learned to stay small when necessary. You don't need to reject that part of yourself. You can thank it, and then you can gently choose something different. You can choose to speak one sentence even when your voice feels unsure. You can choose to say, I disagree, without raising your voice. You can choose to learn English as a way to express, not impress. Let's practice one more sentence. It's okay if this isn't perfect. Repeat after me. It's okay if this isn't perfect. Say it again, slower. It's okay if this isn't perfect. Let that sentence settle. Because perfection is often just fear wearing a nice mask. And you don't need that mask here. As you listen to English, as you speak, as you live your life, remember this. You are allowed to take time. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to disappoint people who only accept you when you are quiet. Your voice matters not because it is flawless, but because it is yours. And every time you speak with honesty, even in simple words, you move closer to yourself. Thank you for staying with me in this quiet reflection. There is one more layer to this fear that I want to touch, because it often hides behind good intentions. It hides behind kindness. It hides behind responsibility. Sometimes we are afraid of disappointing people because we learned that love feels conditional, not because anyone said it directly, but because it felt that way. When praise came only after achievement, when silence followed mistakes, when approval felt fragile. So we learned to manage ourselves carefully. I remember noticing how often I checked people's reactions while I was speaking. A small smile, a nod, a pause. I adjusted my words in real time, trying to stay safe. Maybe you do this too. You watch faces. You listen closely to tone. You sense when you should stop talking. This skill can make you empathetic, but it can also make you disappear. Language learning becomes difficult when you are always monitoring instead of expressing. So let's slow everything down again. Imagine you are speaking English and no one is judging you. No one is rushing you. No one is waiting for perfection. Just imagine that for a moment. What would your voice sound like? Maybe slower, maybe softer, maybe more honest. Let's practice a sentence that gives you permission to slow down. I need a moment to think. Repeat after me. I need a moment to think. This sentence is calm. It is respectful. And it protects your space. You don't need to fill silence immediately. Silence is not failure. Silence is part of thinking. There is another sentence many people are afraid to say. I don't know. Repeat after me. I don't know. This sentence does not make you small. It makes you real. Pretending to know everything creates pressure. Admitting you don't know creates room to learn. And learning, by its nature, includes uncertainty. I want to share a small but important realization. Disappointment is often less dramatic than we imagine. Most of the time, people are busy with their own thoughts, their own worries, their own fears of disappointing someone else. You are not being watched as closely as you think. And even when disappointment happens, it is usually survivable. You can live through it. You can breathe through it. You can remain yourself. Let me tell you about a moment when I disappointed someone. I said no, not loudly, not angrily, just calmly. The other person was quiet for a moment. Their expression changed slightly. And there it was, the thing I had always feared, disappointment. And yet, nothing terrible followed. The conversation continued. Life moved on. The relationship adjusted. What stayed with me was not their disappointment. It was my relief, because I had not betrayed myself. That is something we rarely talk about. The cost of never disappointing others is often disappointing yourself. And that disappointment stays much longer. If you are learning English, this matters deeply, because every time you stay silent out of fear, you miss a chance to practice not just language, but presence. You don't need to be brave all the time, just a little honest, one sentence at a time. Let's practice another one. I'd like to try. Repeat after me. I'd like to try. This sentence holds courage without pressure. You're not promising perfection. You're not guaranteeing success. You're simply showing willingness, and willingness is enough. As we sit here together, I want you to know something clearly. You are not behind because you are careful. You are not weak because you are sensitive. You are not failing because you fear disappointing people. You are human, and learning to speak in any language is an act of trust. Trust that your voice is allowed. Trust that mistakes will not destroy you. Trust that honesty will bring the right people closer. Take another slow breath. Feel your body where you are. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the quiet strength in simply being present. You don't have to change everything today. Just notice. Notice when you hold back. Notice when you apologize unnecessarily. Notice when you silence yourself before anyone asks you to. And when you notice, be gentle. Growth does not come from pressure. It comes from permission. Thank you for staying with me in this long, quiet conversation. There is something very subtle I want to talk about now, something that often goes unnoticed because it feels so normal. Many people who are afraid of disappointing others become very good at predicting needs before they are spoken. You might notice tension before anyone says a word. You might feel responsible for keeping the mood light. You might step in quickly to fix things, smooth things over, or make sure no one feels uncomfortable. From the outside, this looks like kindness. And it is kindness. But when it happens too often, it becomes a habit of self-erasure. I remember a conversation where someone interrupted me mid-sentence. Not in a rude way, just quickly, casually, and without thinking, I stopped speaking. I let them continue. I told myself, it's fine, it's not important. But later, I realized something. What I had to say mattered to me, and I had trained myself to abandon my own words at the smallest sign of interruption. Maybe you've done this too. You begin a sentence in English. Someone speaks over you. You stop, not because you have nothing to say, but because you don't want to take space. Let's practice a sentence that gently brings your voice back. I wasn't finished. Repeat after me. I wasn't finished. Say it calmly. I wasn't finished. This sentence is not aggressive. It is not rude. It simply states a truth. Your words deserve to be completed. There is another quiet belief many people carry. If I speak up, I'm being difficult. But expressing yourself is not difficulty. It is participation. English is not a test you pass by being invisible. It is a living thing you enter by showing up. Let me share a small moment from teaching. I once asked a group of students a simple question. No one answered. They smiled politely. They looked down. They waited. So I said, "It's okay if your answer is not perfect." And slowly, one person spoke. Their grammar wasn't correct. Their sentence stopped and started. But their meaning was clear. And something changed in the room. Others began to speak. Not better, just braver. That first voice gave permission. This is how language grows, not through perfection, but through example. Sometimes, when you speak, you are not only helping yourself, you are helping someone else feel less alone. I want you to remember that. Now, let's slow down again. Think about this sentence. I'm allowed to take space. Repeat after me. I'm allowed to take space. Say it again, but quieter. I'm allowed to take space. This is not just an English sentence. It's a life sentence. Taking space does not mean dominating a conversation. It means allowing your presence to exist, your thoughts, your pace, your accent, all of it belongs. You don't need to rush your sentences to make others comfortable. You don't need to apologize for thinking. You don't need to disappear to be accepted. And if someone feels disappointed because you are honest, that disappointment is not a failure. It is a boundary being felt. Boundaries are not walls. They are signals. They tell others where you begin. As we move toward the end of this long reflection, I want to say something clearly. Without softness, without hesitation, you do not owe the world a smaller version of yourself. You do not owe silence in exchange for acceptance. You do not owe perfection in exchange for patience. You owe yourself honesty, and honesty, spoken gently, is one of the most powerful things language can carry. So the next time you feel that familiar fear, the fear of disappointing someone, pause. Ask yourself one question. What would it sound like if I spoke anyway? Even one sentence, even one word. That is enough. Thank you for walking with me through this quiet journey. Thank you for listening with your whole presence. Sometimes, after we understand something deeply, there is a strange emptiness. Not a bad emptiness, just a quiet space where old habits used to live. When the fear of disappointing people loosens, even slightly, we may ask ourselves a new question. If I'm not living to meet expectations, who am I listening to now? This question can feel uncomfortable, because for a long time, other people's reactions may have been our compass. Approval meant we were going in the right direction. Silence or disappointment meant we had made a mistake. When that compass stops controlling us, we need to learn a new way to navigate. I remember noticing this for the first time when I made a decision purely because it felt right to me. No one praised me. No one criticized me either. There was just quiet. And in that quiet, I felt unsure. Maybe you felt this too. You finally say no. You finally speak honestly. You finally stop explaining yourself. And instead of relief, you feel a strange doubt. Was I too much? Was I selfish? Did I do the wrong thing? This is very normal. When you stop living for approval, your nervous system needs time to adjust. It has been trained to scan for reactions. Without them, it feels unsteady. So let's practice grounding yourself in language again. Repeat after me. I made the best decision I could. Say it slowly. I made the best decision I could. This sentence is not dramatic. It doesn't claim perfection. It simply acknowledges effort and intention. Another sentence that can help in moments of doubt is this. I can live with this choice. Repeat after me. I can live with this choice. This sentence gives you stability. It says, I am here. I am present. I am capable. When you learn English in this way through sentences that support your inner life, the language becomes a companion, not a performance. There is something else I want to say, especially if you often feel guilty after speaking honestly. Guilt does not always mean you did something wrong. Sometimes guilt appears when you break an old pattern. If you were taught to always agree, honesty feels like rebellion. If you were taught to stay quiet, speaking feels like danger. If you were taught to please, boundaries feel like rejection. But growth often feels wrong before it feels right. Let me share a small moment. I once expressed a need calmly and clearly. Afterwards, I felt heavy, not because the conversation went badly, but because I had never allowed myself to need something so openly before. The guilt came later. And then I realized this guilt was not a warning. It was a habit of putting myself last. So if you feel uncomfortable after speaking your truth in English, don't rush to take it back. Sit with it. Breathe. Let your body learn that you are still safe. Let's practice another gentle sentence. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Repeat after me. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Say it again, slower. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Discomfort is not danger. It is often the sign of change. As you continue learning English, you may notice that your sentences become more personal, less memorized, more real. You might say things like, I'm not sure how to explain this, but I feel this is difficult for me to say. I need to be honest. These sentences are beautiful. They show courage. They show humanity. And if someone is disappointed by your honesty, remember this. You did not disappoint them by being real. You simply stopped pretending. Pretending keeps peace on the surface. Honesty creates peace inside. An inner peace is quieter, but stronger. Before we part today, I want you to hold one final thought. You are not learning English to become someone else. You are learning English to become more yourself. Your voice does not need to be smaller to be accepted. It needs to be present to be alive. So speak when you can. Pause when you need. And trust that your pace is enough. Thank you for staying with me in this long reflection. If you are listening to this now, at the very end, I want you to notice something. You stayed with a feeling that is not easy. You stayed with language that asks you to be honest. You stayed with yourself. That already tells me something about you. It tells me you care deeply. It tells me you are thoughtful. It tells me you are brave in a quiet way. Being afraid of disappointing people does not mean you are weak. It means you have learned to value connection. Now, slowly, you are learning something new. That connection does not require self-erasure. That love does not require silence. That respect does not require perfection. As you move forward in English and in life, you will still feel this fear sometimes. It won't disappear overnight, but each time it appears, you will recognize it. And instead of obeying it immediately, you may pause. You may breathe. You may choose one honest sentence. That is enough. Growth is not loud. It is consistent. It is gentle. It is real. Thank you for sharing this quiet space with me. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.